Welcome back to the Dark Reading News Desk here at Black Hat USA. Terry Sweeney here, contributing editor with Dark Reading, and joining us now is Mark Wojtasiak, Vice President of Research and Strategy with Vectra AI. Mark, welcome to the Dark Reading News Desk.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Terry. This is great.
Appreciate you doing this. We are talking about something you're calling the hybrid enterprise, which, if I understand correctly, has emerged from the rapid adoption of both AI and generative AI. Talk a bit how this has shifted the attack landscape, and really what do we mean by this term, the hybrid enterprise?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have a couple beliefs. That one thing is enterprises will be hybrid forever, and what we mean by hybrid is mix of on-prem and cloud.
Okay.
Right. So the enterprise is largely going to be that way for the foreseeable future. Thus, attackers are hybrid as well. So we have this notion of the hybrid enterprise, hence hybrid attackers, and we can kind of talk about, what we see the challenges are with dealing with the types of attacks that we can call hybrid attacks.
Okay. With Gen AI tools that are enabling hybrid attackers to infiltrate and deploy campaigns across networks, identities, and clouds more quickly, break this down, how they're actually doing this. What has AI unleashed that makes this better, easier, faster, cheaper?
Yeah, I look at Gen AI in general as like twofold. One, you got to view it as it's an attack surface in and of itself. So as these hybrid enterprises begin to adopt Gen AI tools, whether it's Microsoft Copilot for M365 or other tools, we view that as an attack surface, right? At the same time, attackers are leveraging Gen AI as a means to accelerate their attacks, as a means to take control of an identity, do recon, move laterally across the network and into the cloud, right? So the notion of this hybrid attack surface as this one giant attack surface is very difficult to defend against, especially when attackers are armed with Gen AI as a tool.
Do their methods vary radically between cloud-based attacks versus the on-prem where they're using AI-based tools?
I think attackers think, I think fundamentally, this is one of the challenges that we see is that for the longest time we've been buying two things in security, right? We've been buying visibility and control.
Okay.
And we've been buying visibility and selling visibility and control to security practitioners by individual attack surface. I have endpoints. I need to buy visibility and control for my endpoints. I have identity.
Okay.
I need to buy visibility in my identity infrastructure. I have network. I'm going to buy visibility and control. And we see these things as siloed individual attack surfaces, but an attacker just sees one giant attack surface.
Okay.
They just want to get in, and they're largely logging in now, not hacking in, taking an identity, taking control, moving across the network, doing discovery, recon, et cetera, identifying where critical assets exist, and moving into them largely unseen. Because we're viewing these things as individuals, it's not all stitched together. So that makes it really challenging from a defender perspective.
Okay, so it sounds like Gen AI-based attacks are basically making attacks like silo neutral. Like it doesn't really care. It just looks at.
Well, you think about it, any attack, they don't even have to be leveraging Gen AI as a tool. The problem with an attacker armed with Gen AI is they can execute their campaigns so much faster, right? Imagine if an attacker gets seizes an identity, right? And that's what they commonly do. They need two things to be successful: an identity and a network, right? If they get an identity, they get on the network. And that identity say they have M365 for Copilot. They're going to use that identity to start leveraging that Gen AI to discover where assets exist. They're going to discover what privileged accounts they might escalate to, move to the cloud, et cetera. And they're doing that extremely fast. What used to take them days, weeks to kind of get into an enterprise and move around and look around,
right.
Can do it extremely fast. So it makes it really hard for a defender to defend against.
Okay. With that in mind, talk about how Vectra AI is leveraging the technology to help SOC teams really combat these advanced and emerging AI threats?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, this is what we see in terms of like, okay, this introduction of Gen AI or AI as an attack surface and an attacker tool is shining a light on a big problem that we have around latency. Right? There's a tremendous amount of latency from stitching together threat signal from multiple attack surfaces. There's a tremendous amount of latency in detection engineering, writing rules, tuning rules, making sure that we can detect things, delivering a ton of alerts to the SOC. There's a tremendous amount of latency in the SOC analyst's ability to triage those alerts, investigate them, figure out what's real, what isn't real. How do you remove that latency? Well, you use AI to do that. You use pre-built AI ML models that understand attacker behavior across the hybrid attack surface.
So, but just to clarify, when you say latency, you mean more than just the time that it takes
the time it takes to do things, the time it takes for a human to do things, right?
Okay.
And how can AI shrink that time? Because attackers are doing that.
Right.
They have shrunk the time it takes them to do things. They're humans behind the scenes.
But latency is volume is also a function of that latency. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lack of signal. Like there's a tremendous amount of latency in threat detection, investigation, and response. From the point, and a lot of it's tied around how can we arrive at an accurate signal for the SOC. Just answer the question: is this real? Is this a real attack or not? Is this worth my time? And that, unfortunately, is wrought with latency. So that's where AI can come in. Right? And in terms of like, does it understand attacker behavior? Does it understand how the attacker is getting in, what they're doing once they're in? Can that signal be stitched together and handed to a SOC analyst and say, this is real, go follow up, this is the thing that is worth your time and talent, investigate it, right? And then quickly come to a response as early in the attacker's progression as possible.
Is there a common use case that seems to be emerging among your existing customers where the things we're talking about get applied?
Yeah, I allude back to one of the top conversations are happening with our customers right now around identity. Right, so there's like fundamentally a hybrid attack is an identity attack. It's the one thing they need. Scattered Spider, Midnight Blizzard, Volt Typhoon, Black Basta, they all take control of an identity. They all get on the network, and then they move really fast. So our conversations with our customers start with like, you can call it a path to XDR, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but it's like shore up your identity, shore up your network. You will detect hybrid attackers much, much sooner with accurate signal, right? And stop them much, much sooner.
I feel like we may have addressed this at least in piece part, but can you take a deeper cut at the way that enterprises have moved past the need to manage these individual attack surfaces, and how this has changed the way that SOC teams and in tandem attackers are operating?
Well, I don't know if they truly have moved beyond the individual attack surfaces. Right? I think of it as like, look around the show floor, you see like endpoint companies and identity companies and cloud companies and network companies. It's like we keep pushing this individual attack surface view of things, while a hybrid attacker's like, there's just one big attack surface. Like your company is hybrid, the enterprise is hybrid, I can move around on-prem, cloud, SaaS, you name it, and armed with Gen AI. So I think that we need to get over that hump. I think it's like, who's going to give me the most integrated signal across my entire attack surface, hybrid attack surfaces, not in these silos. So I think there's still as an industry, we're still challenged with thinking individual attack surfaces. We still think, do we have coverage for network? Do we have coverage versus, are we looking at this like an attacker is looking at this? Are we considering this as one big attack surface?
Okay, fair enough. What advice would you have for customers or potential customers who are pondering whether this solution is right for them?
Biggest thing is I think of latency. I think of take a good hard look at your threat detection, investigation, response program, and try and pinpoint from start to finish, from like where is your data coming? Is it coming into a SIM? Is there latency in that? Is there latency in your detection engineering process? Is there latency in your ability to stitch together things, do correlations, deliver a signal to SOC? Is there latency in the SOC analyst job? You know, and pinpoint and prioritize where you want to remove latency, right? Mirror that with where are attackers removing latency,
Sure.
right? And see if you can. That's the only way to keep pace is to think like they think and try and pinpoint where there is latency in your process, and where you can apply AI to remove that latency.
Mark, thank you. Way different way to think about the existing silos and how we can flatten it into a unified attack surface.
Awesome, enjoyed it.
Thanks
Terry.
for joining us on Dark Reading News Desk.
Yeah, thank you.
We've been talking with Mark Wojtasiak of Vectra AI. This has been Terry Sweeney for the Dark Reading News Desk. Thank you.